What's up, everybody? And in this video today we're going to be teaching y'all some tips that really have been very beneficial to me in my shed hunting success over the last couple years. And if before we get into this video, if y'all could subscribe and like this video and hit that notification bell to get notified when we have other videos, that would be great. Okay, now let's get into the video. Thanks for watching. So tip number one is fence lines. Fence lines are a really great spot because when the bucks jump over it, the movement of them jumping can sometimes knock off the sheds. I've only found a couple near a fence line, but I know they work because, you know, I've had a couple of my friends tell me it works a lot, and I've seen it myself because I found a couple there near fence lines. So let's get into tip number two. So tip number two is a basic one, of course, and that would be main trails. Main trails are a really great spot to find sheds because the deer travel through it basically every day, every night. There's a difference between a main trail and just a regular trail. Main trails are where it's basically just dirt, where they run through it, and I've seen that a lot. And regular trails are kind of, you know, they go through there, but you can tell they go through there, but they don't use it a lot. And the reason why it's a good spot for it is because a lot of deer, the reason why the main trail is a really great spot to find sheds is because there's a lot of overhanging limbs, and the overhanging limbs can just basically pull the sheds right off. And the main trail is, again, a trail that all of the deer basically use, so which means the bucks will travel through it too. We're going to get into tip number three here. Hey everybody, before we get into tip number three, if y'all could stay for the end of this video, that would be great, because tip number 10 is one of my favorites to use of all time. It's really been very successful for me, and hopefully it'll be successful for you as well. So stay tuned, and hopefully y'all watch till the end of this video. Thanks for watching. So tip number three is kind of one of my favorites. You can find a lot of sheds in it, and that would be thick areas. Thick areas, you know, it's kind of weird that the bucks will actually go through it, but they actually do, especially if there's a bedding area near it, which we'll get into the bedding areas later. But thick areas are a really great spot because there's a lot of overhanging limbs and vines everywhere, and the antlers will basically just fall right off when they're walking through the thick area. It's one of my favorite spots, and can't wait to try it this year again. So tip number four is we haven't tried it like ever, but we're gonna try it this year. And you have to kind of have your own property or a friend's property you hunt on. And I know some states don't allow baiting, but here in Maryland they do. And so tip number four is putting out corn after the season. Now, of course, you're not going to hunt it, but what it can do is it can attract more deer in, and hopefully it'll attract the bucks. And you know, as February keeps going on, they'll most likely, you know, and if they keep coming to the corn, they'll most likely start dropping either around the corn or in the vicinity of the corn. And you don't just have to have corn; you can have some big tine stuff in there as well, but corn, we're going to try it this year. We're going to see how it works. I've seen it work a lot on YouTube here of other people trying it. And so we're going to go into tip number 5 here. So tip number 5 is a really great tip to use, and that would be bedding areas. Bedding areas can produce a lot of sheds because the bucks will just lay in there, and you know, when they get up, or sometimes when they get up, they'll shake off, and with that movement, the antlers will fall right off. And you can kind of tell bedding areas from just being in the woods. Bedding areas are kind of have smashed down areas where the deer lay. You can really find bedding areas in the snow. But bedding areas are a really great spot. I've heard a lot of people find a lot of sheds in it, and I've found a couple sheds as well in a bedding area. So we're going to go into tip number 6 here. Okay, so tip number 6 is kind of another basic tip, and that's open fields. As you can see behind me, I have an open field behind me. and you can find a lot of sheds in it, especially if it's you know, it's growing really good, and you know, whatever you have in it, either a late crop or winter crop, winter cover or something. But where you really want to look on open fields is, of course, out in the field, but right on the edge. And we'll get into a later tip, especially tip number 10. That'll kind of cover that, right, being on the edge. But the edge of the fields are really great. So okay, let's get into tip number 7 here. So tip number 7 is kind of basically just like tip number 6, and tip number 7 is food plots. Food plots can hold a little bit more deer than a kind of a open field can, because it's more of the stuff they like. So we're not really going to cover too much of tip number 7 because it's basically like tip number 6. But let's get into tip number 8 now. So tip number 8 is hills facing the sun. You want to find hills that face the sun basically all day. You know, I know that's kind of hard to do, but you know, the hills can really produce a lot of sheds, because in the winter it gets, of course, cold, and the sun kind of helps the deer get warm, and they'll just basically lay on that hillside where it's sunny basically all day, and it's a really great spot to find sheds, because they're just laying there the whole day, and they walk on that hillside and everything. Can't wait to try that tip this year. It can get you a lot of sheds. So let's go into tip number 9. So tip number 9, yeah. Tip number 9 is near water. Of course, in the wintertime, the deer have to drink, and just with that movement of their head going down to get some water, it can make the sheds fall off. And I've never really found any near water, but I'm going to really look this year, because we got a little pond kind of on the property here, and hopefully it'll produce some sheds this year. But a lot of people I know have had it work a lot, and I can't wait to try it myself. So we're going to go into tip number 10 here. Tip number 10 is one of my favorites to use, and hopefully it'll help y'all out as well. Okay, so for tip number 10, we're going to slide you over to a different video, because one of the days I was actually filming this video it was filming, so you kind of get a first look at how this tip is actually how this tip is really good. So stay tuned, and hopefully y'all like number 10. Thanks for watching. Favorite tips, especially when it snows. As you can see, the field is kind of covered. That's the main food source for the deer in the winter. Now, of course, they eat stuff in the woods, but the field is kind of, the crops and all is kind of what they eat during the winter. That's their main source of food. Now, when it's covered in a bigger snow than this, here's where they're going to get their food right here. As you can see, these limbs are kind of covering this, so the deer are going to be able to come out here just a little bit and feed out here. What that's going to do is the low-hanging limbs are going to, like this stuff, like right in here on the field edge, is going to knock the antlers off usually. And it's one of my favorite tips, especially when it snows. I have found like 20 to 30 sheds by using that tip. So okay, everybody, so hopefully y'all enjoyed all them tips, especially tip number 10. That's really been beneficial, really, to me. That's been one of my favorite tips to use. And well, now we're going to show you some of the sheds that we have found over the years. Last year, actually, I found my biggest and my first matching set. So here's the first matching set I ever found. Found this on a property where we don't hunt anymore, but we can still like cut wood and stuff there, so that's nice. But I really like how thick these are. Really nice 8-pointer. I really would have liked to have seen what he looked like this year, but hopefully he's still around for next year. Maybe for this year, maybe I can find the sheds this year. So okay, now we're gonna look at my biggest one here. This was from the same farm, and this one's the biggest one I've ever found while shed hunting by myself. It's one of the biggest that my whole family's ever found, and just a huge right side of an 8-pointer, and I guess he could be a 9 or whatever, but I mean, that's huge right there. I would have loved to have seen this guy this year. Maybe I can find, you know, what he looks like this year while shed hunting, but we'll see. So yeah, this is the biggest one I've ever found, and just a absolute giant. And so now we're going to take you to some of the videos that I captured of last year of finding these sheds. So hopefully y'all enjoy that. Thanks for watching. Look at that. Awesome. Look at that. That's a good shed right there. Look at that. That is great. Nice little future really good 8-pointer. Look at that. Well, we found our 13th shed of the year. Let's go. Right there. Look at that. Oh, that's his matching side. Oh, I found this buck. This buck side about probably 100 yards that way, and this is his side. No way! This is my first matching set ever. Look at that. I got my other shed at home of this buck. Yes! Wow! Yes! This is awesome, man. Oh my goodness.